Okay, so let's go and back to John here, and I guess we're going to talk a little bit about home routers and some of the things that are targeting those devices.
Yeah, so this is an interesting story. We've talked about various home routers, embedded devices getting compromised before. This is a little bit of a spin. It's not necessarily a new tactic. I don't know if we've ever covered this on the program before, but basically the gist here is there's a group of actors out there targeting particular users, mostly in Brazil, some in the United States, with a phishing email. A phishing email basically kind of lures you. It's this scareware kind of thing where it says, hey, we've got naked photos of you, something like that. And if you want to see these or get rid of them, click on this link. You click on the link, and what it does is it actually downloads into your browser a web page. And in that, now it's running in the context of your web browser, this JavaScript that's in there. And it tries to attack your home router with common passwords that it knows, and really is trying only maybe 4 or 5 different combinations. Right. But if you don't reset your home router, a lot of people just take it out of the box, they set it down, and they just use whatever it comes with, like admin, or it's like a default password.
Right.
So what this does is it tries to use those default credentials. So from within, on the inside, it's trying to manage your home router behind the scenes inside your browser with this malicious JavaScript running in there.
All right.
And change the DNS settings on your home router.
So on this, that's not really an exploit against the machine or anything. It's just JavaScript. It's telling it to execute things, but since it's executing from your browser, it's inside your local network. And I think we talked about this kind of scenario in the past, but this particular campaign.
There's a term for this. They call it drive-by DNS farming.
Right.
Somebody came up with that term maybe a few years back, I want to say 5-6 years ago. And what it does is, like you said, from within, on the inside, there, if the home router doesn't do a lot of good protections, so basically if it's not real clever in how it handles password forms and whatnot, such that it allows you to be able to script it with JavaScript, which in this case, there's a bunch of routers, mostly in Brazil, that are vulnerable to an easy way, as long as you know the password, to change the DNS settings by just applying a lot of get parameters on the URL string. Once that's done, now your home router itself has wrong DNS settings pointing to a rogue DNS server. Usually people's home devices, when they connect, they'll get DHCP. They're going to get the same DNS servers via DHCP that the router has, which are the bad ones. And now what they've set it up is, so most things that are queried against that rogue DNS server, it tells you the right place. But for Brazilian banking websites, a lot of the large ones, it is giving wrong information, sending you to a phishing page that looks very authentic, and you look at it, the correct URL is up there, but it's not the real website, and you put the login and ID and password in.
And I presume you don't get the SSL certificate lock thing.
As far as I'm aware, they're not doing any kind of. They're not supplying rogue SSL.
But you wouldn't get any warnings either. It's not as if it's going to be in your face, this certificate doesn't match, because there probably isn't one at all.
Right.
So I did read the article, I don't mean to interrupt, but didn't they say that if the 5 or so guesses that it tries fails, it actually fires up a prompt and asks you for your password?
So go to the next slide. Yes, it does. So during the process of it trying these passwords, so this is, I kind of put this slide in here because if you are in Brazil, or maybe not, you might see this in other campaigns targeted towards the US or other places. When it tries like admin, if that's not your password, it will pop, usually your home router will pop up a little authentication dialog saying, well, that's not the right password. Type it in, and you'll be like, wait, I'm not trying to log into my home router. I'm going to this website, So if you see that pop up, that's a good indicator that something shady is probably going on in whatever content you received from this website or some frame within that website. Good precaution, as always, is don't use default passwords on your router. Even though it's only going to be managed from the inside of your network, which is, you would think, is protected, it's not always the case here. So it's always good to change don't use the default password that ships with your home router product.
Well, this is about layers of protection. Your local network is a layer of protection, but it's not your last defense. And so you want to make sure that you're paying attention to what's going on with within your own network as well.
Right. This is not a new problem in Brazil. We've seen other interesting very similar campaigns over the past 3-4 years. So back in the 2011 timeframe, there was another group doing DNS poisoning, targeting Brazilian banking websites. But what they were doing in these cases is they actually, at first they thought they were doing DNS cache poisoning, which we've talked about as, the whole Kaminsky thing with the, using certain strategies to poison the cache of a DNS server. What they actually found out is there was a certain ISP within Brazil that had a rogue actor in place that was updating the DNS server settings at that ISP to provide false results. Yeah. And he was subsequently arrested for that. But obviously that same tactic is still kind of being used. Not to say that the ISPs are compromised here, but to poison the DNS, so to speak, or to have rogue DNSs injected in your in the process of your communications to get you to the wrong place.
So it'd be purely conjecture to say this is the same actor group as between the two cases.
Right. No,
but if I understand correctly, it was actually just the insider actor that was actually that there's a good chance that person was just being paid to do that.
That's
on
very
behalf
possible
of somebody else. So
but I have no evidence to suggest that they're connected in any way. Just seemed interesting.
Interesting
that it was so similar types of campaigns targeting banking. Right. Which this one was as well. So
we also saw one called Banco's Proxy a few years back as well, right?
Yes.
And that one, I think, actually changed the settings on each individual host. All the malware would do was fire off, change the settings, and go away.
Right.
And after that, it was pretty undetectable.
Yeah, and then we dealt with a DNS changer malware that was right along those same lines a while ago. So, DNS changer was a piece of malware that there was a lot of activity to make the corrections for. There were arrests in Estonia, but there are a lot of variations of that exist of ways to change where you're pointing for DNS and to be able to play some games with that. The one exception I've seen, the only time I've ever seen a case where it was an insider actually manipulating an ISP's DNS was that Brazil case. And obviously, integrity of our DNS is pretty important. It's not the last, the last measure from a security standpoint. Really, what you should be looking for is the security certificates. Make sure that you're at a legitimate site, is showing the proper domain associated with it, and signed by a proper authority. But that's a piece of it, absolutely.